All right, we are back. What's going on? What do we got? Piers Morgan? Yes.
We've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace.
Joe Biden was a doormat. Everybody, including Ukraine, walked all over us, okay? Besides Trump is a matador.
We are fighting for our own freedom.
Then
so
you should be mad at the people that want to push them into NATO.
Question.
We have actual enemies, and Russia is not one of them.
There is
She's
a
not
lot of
looking
bullshit
so hot
swirling around
lately.
about this war.
It's quite unusual and quite
looking
scary
sick,
for me to
almost.
land as an American citizen and being told that now the American state is going to be set on me.
If that's not the same weaponization of the justice system that Biden was doing to Trump, then what is it?
He makes the left's case for it. This guy
I still
shows up
need to
and
make it
says,
through that
I'm a
Andrew
real
Tate
man. I beat
interview
on women. And the
from the
right
other
is like,
day.
yeah, right on. This is a real man. It's disgusting.
You keep saying Meghan Markle, you know I'm Sussex now.
It is reputed she has spent under 6 hours in the county in her entire lifetime.
God, man, watch who you marry.
Andrew and Tristan Tate are now under criminal investigation in Florida. Ben Shapiro has launched a campaign to free George Floyd's killer, which Elon Musk says is something to think about. And Meghan Markle's new Netflix show is less popular than Ebola. But we'll get to all of that in a second half of the show. We begin with the vital olive branch from President Trump last night to President Zelensky.
Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Well, it's fair to say before his congressional address that relations between the US and Ukraine had hit rock bottom. The Oval Office blowout led to the US pausing all military aid to Ukraine, leaving it in a desperate and dangerous limbo. On Wednesday, CIA Director John Ratcliffe announced that intelligence sharing with Ukraine had also been paused to pressure its government to cooperate with the Trump administration's plans to end the country's war with Russia. No matter where you stand on America's involvement in foreign wars, this is clearly a crucial reset. Nobody, including Trump, wants Putin to declare war victory here. Everyone, especially Trump, wants the war to end. The question is whether this week's diplomatic mayhem has made a breakthrough more or less likely. Well, joining me now, a decorated Iraq veteran and commentator Rob Smith, Mesa Gifford, a British veteran of the Ukrainian army, Angry Patriot Vinny Oshana from the PBD podcast, and from the Free Press, the author of Second Class, How Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women, Batia Ungar Sargon,
She legitimately
and
looks
also
sick.
the People's Deputy of Ukraine, Kira Ruddick. Well, welcome to all of you. Kira, let me start with you, if I may. What is your response
what's
to
going on,
what appeared to be
Batia?
a clear olive branch from President Trump
might be
to
sick.
President Zelensky last night?
Hello, Piers, and thank you so much for having me. Well, we were surprised to see what we have seen today when America stopped the intelligence provision to Ukraine after President Trump was so clearly saying that the relations are getting warmer, right? One has to wonder, was it all planned beforehand and just executed right now? And the question is, why is pressure being put on Ukraine and not on Russia? Who is the aggressor here?
You never know.
And how many people are being sentenced to death right now by this decision of pulling the intelligence, of pulling the aid?
Yeah, I mean, Rob Smith, first of all, thank you for your service. Obviously, you're a decorated Iraq veteran. I have great respect for that. What people seem a bit baffled by, me included, is that you can be putting pressure on Ukraine to come and do a peace deal for obvious reasons that make a lot of sense. I actually think that Trump's overview of where the war is completely accurate. I think he genuinely wants to forge peace here. What people have been taken aback by is that he's quite happy to call Zelensky a dictator and then withdraw that and keep attacking him and humiliating him in the Oval Office and so on, whilst maintaining a position of never appearing to criticize Vladimir Putin at all, despite the fact that it was Putin,
That's
of course,
kill me.
and his Russian forces who invaded 3 years ago.
Well, I will say this, first of all, thanks for having me, Piers. First of all, it's not probably a good choice to criticize and to be really hard on the person that has basically the upper hand between Ukraine and Russia, which is Putin, right? So that's first of all. And second of all, I think that what people need to understand is that the people that were quote unquote taken aback by Trump's behavior towards Zelensky, by Trump's behavior towards the Ukraine, seem to be political commentators, seem to be people that were in support of just never ending this war, okay? I am somebody that voted for Trump, and I voted for this. I voted for strong leadership. I voted for somebody to hold Zelensky accountable. I voted for somebody to stop this endless sea of American taxpayer dollars that have been going to Ukraine for the past 3 years to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. The only people that are surprised by this behavior are the people that have become used to weak leadership in this country. The people who have become used to somebody like former President Biden, and a lot of the people that were advising him being run all over by Zelensky, by the people of Ukraine, by the people that supported this nonstop funding of American tax dollars to this country. President Trump has said very strongly and has sent very strong signals through his words and through his actions that not only does he want this war to end, but that we will not continue to send endless amounts of American taxpayer dollars to this country.
Okay, before I go to Mesa to respond, though, do you, Rob Smith, think Vladimir Putin's a dictator?
I do, personally, yes.
Okay. Well, I think that's an important thing to say. I think that lost in all this is the fact that obviously Putin is a dictator.
And Piers, can I just make it? Yeah. I just want to make it clear that number one, I do think that Putin is a dictator. I do think that Russia is very aggressive. I do not agree with a lot of the stuff. I am in no way on the side of Russia at all. I know that that's a talking point that, and I'm not saying you did this, Piers, but I know that a lot of Democrats that want this forever aid to go to Ukraine like to say that anybody that is critical of non-stop U.S. taxpayer dollars going to Ukraine is
no, I get that, and I don't disagree with Trump on that. I don't. Yeah, I think the war is at a terrible virtual stalemate where for 8-9 months now all that's happened is both sides killing vast numbers of the other side in rolling, open, flat fields. And this is reminiscent of World War I to many military eyes. Let me bring in Mesa Gifford. You're a British veteran and you've been in the Ukrainian army as well. What do you say to Rob Smith, also a fellow veteran who has a strong view in the way he's articulated? What's your response to that?
Well, I'd say that America needs to start looking to its values. It needs to start remembering who the victim is here in this conflict. Russia brutally invaded a European sovereign nation on the edge of Europe, a democracy, a country that ranks far higher on the freedom indexes than Russia, and they are brutalizing this beautiful country. I was on the front line, particularly in the south and around Kherson. I fought with the 131st Separate Reconnaissance Battalion, and I saw with my own eyes the extraordinary bravery of the Ukrainian people who are fighting not only for their homes, but for their lives against a genocidal regime that is determined to take all of Ukraine. And the big problem we've got here is Donald Trump he's come in to the White House with a sledgehammer, and he is absolutely trashing a political system, a world system that America has benefited from and actually built itself after the Second World War. We are entering a very dangerous phase of international relations, and I truly hope Donald Trump sees sense and starts to remember exactly the foundational values that America was built on.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is now proudly independent. If you like the show, we ask for only one thing. Subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now let's get straight to the point. Support for today's show comes from a business focused on a critical issue: prosperity, US national debt, is at crisis levels. Inflation has made life more expensive for everybody, and the stock market is precarious, enough to make anyone's financial future feel grim. So what is the solution? Well, a simple one is to opt out of the chaos and invest in something solid and reliable: physical gold and silver. And there's only one name you need to remember: American Hartford Gold. This company has earned the trust of thousands of customers with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and glowing reviews you can see for yourself. They offer an incredible range of gold and silver bars and coins. They can be delivered directly to your door, or they'll help you set them up in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. First-class customer service makes the whole process simple, secure, and straightforward. American Hartford Gold is committed to getting the truth out there and giving you peace of mind in uncertain times. And if that wasn't enough, you'll get up to $15,000 worth of free silver when you make your first purchase and mention my name, Piers. So make the smart move. Call 866-692-2474 or text Piers, that's P-I-E-R-S, to 65532. That's 866-692-2474 or text Piers to 65532. All the details in the description. Now on with the show. Okay, Vinny, let me bring
what
you
I would
in
like to say
here.
as an American is that we certainly don't need any lectures from people that have been taking hundreds of billions of dollars of our taxpayer dollars, like welfare queens, telling us that we need to take a look at what our values are. That is one thing that America does not need.
British
and I appreciate the fact that we have a, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What we don't need is we don't need other people. We don't need other people lecturing us about what our values are. That's the first thing that we don't need. Thank you.
$300 billion of money has been given over to Ukraine, when in reality, something like
from you. And also don't need lectures.
Don't talk over each other. All right, don't talk over each other. You made
Hang
your
on.
point, Rob. Let Mason respond.
Because the trouble is, we get a lot of sort of self-righteousness. We're getting a lot of ignorance actually from the Trump sort of administration at the moment. We've got to get a grip on reality. The reality is, the U.S. has not given $300 billion that Donald Trump has claimed. It's given something much more close to sort of $119 billion. Europe as a whole has given far more. Actually, not far more, but more than the United States in regards to aid to Ukraine. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to start busting some myths. And we actually need to start spitting some facts. Another big problem that we've got, and that I think is absolutely reprehensible.
So you're basically bringing out numbers here. I would like to know where these numbers are coming from, because you can't just
I can say, Rob, I interviewed President Zelensky myself 2 weeks ago and crunched these numbers with him. And what is clear is they have not received, they've not even received nearly half the money that has been awarded to them from Congress, but the amount that's been awarded from Congress is actually about half the amount Donald Trump keeps saying. It's nearer like 160, 170 billion, not 350 billion.
With that? I want to make a point with that, Piers. And one thing when it comes to the amount of money that has been sent over to the Ukraine, there has been no oversight with this. It was a basically lawless Biden administration that was printing money and sending it over. There is no oversight to this.
Well, again, Rob, hang on, Zelensky, Zelensky made it very clear to me that it has all been audited, and he's very happy that anyone who wants to do another audit of it to come forward and do that. So let's be clear, as I think Mesa made a very good point there is a lot of bullshit swirling around about this war. A lot of figures are not the correct figures. Let me bring in Vinny. I want to bring in the other guests. Hang on, Rob. I'll come back to you. Got plenty of time.
Sure.
I want to bring in Vinny. Vinny's been waiting unusually patiently, Vinny, I have to say. So congratulations for your rare outburst of patience. Vinny, I want to play a clip to you, and I want to see how comfortable you feel when you hear the words of Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Let's listen to him.
Trump, he's a pragmatist. His slogan is common sense, of course, and everybody already sees that. A shift to a different way of doing things. But the goal is still MAGA. Make America great again. Make America great again. He's got a new cap now. Everything that Trump promised, he did. You see? This gives politics a lively human character.
Bye now.
What's your response to that?
I love, hey, guess what? Common sense, Piers. The guy sounds like he's making some sense. Opposed to Joe Biden, because Piers, let me, and first of all, thank you for your service, Rob. I love you to death, and for the other gentlemen, anybody that's served in our country. I'm a veteran as well. But let's get back to brass tacks. But this is all because of this last administration, and there's a contrast. Joe Biden was a doormat, weak, spineless, and everybody, including Ukraine, including everybody, walked all over us, okay? Besides Trump is a matador, okay? He's strong, and he's America first, and he doesn't play no games. And you know what, Piers, just really fast, I want to get to why, and I actually took notes. Piers, why is all this happening? Why are we where we are?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
NATO, why was NATO trying to expand the border when they promised not to all the way to Russia's border? Okay, why did Joe Biden invite Russia, and you guys can look at the clip, he invited them to do a minor incursion. He basically invited them to attack Ukraine. He said that to Putin. And you know what? And now, $350 million. You guys can fact check the numbers. I'm an American, okay, and I'm a veteran as well. I don't want $1 here, going to any country when we have United States veterans. Me and Rob are the fortunate ones that are dying in the streets, that are homeless. I go to VAs, of veteran hospitals. Piers, it will make you cry, the type of service that my brothers and sisters go through, that served and fought and are dying for this freaking country, right? And how many people have died in this pointless freaking war? Because you know what? Up here's this whole why. War is a racket. Okay, all of this is just all about the money. And I want to know, what's the goal, Piers? Why are these people, these warmongers, they don't give a shit about Ukraine. They're just trying to mess with Putin because they want war with Putin. You know why? Which country has the most natural resources and minerals on the planet, Piers? You want to take a guess? Take a wild guess.
Where's Russia?
Russia, $75 trillion. It's all about the money. None of these people give a shit about the Ukrainian soldiers. Piers, zero. And you guys want to talk about freedom? What's the conscription that's happening in Ukraine? I've seen the videos. They run up to men, sons, fathers, uncles. They grab them out of the street. They throw them in vans, and they put them in the front line.
Those videos are
Who's
hard
the
to watch.
dictator, Piers? That's
He's
the
just
dictator.
walking his dog.
Okay?
All right,
I'm
going to come.
They roll up in a van,
Two
just
things Piers
chase
can
after
exist at
him,
the same time.
toss him in the
Putin's
van.
bad. Putin's a bad guy.
Going
but this
to
war
war,
is
buddy.
bullshit.
Okay, Batia, I'll come to you in 1 second. I just want Kira to respond to what Vinny just said.
It's very painful, and I just want to defend my countrymen, brave men and women
hurts, I'm sorry.
who are
The truth
fighting
hurts.
for our freedom. Because, you know, we are a free country. We were free and we remain free. We have chosen to fight because we were brutally attacked by our neighbor, who just came in to torture, to rape, to kill, and we decided that we will not capitulate, we will stand for ourselves. And the world is watching, and the only thing that we are asking is to support us, that we can end this war. We are capable of doing that. We were so
You
clear.
can't win the war. Hold on, Kira, can you win this war?
Absolutely.
There's no
If you give
chance
us
of winning this
enough
war.
of the weapons and
No,
supplies,
yeah,
we can.
yeah. How much
We
more?
have,
$1 trillion?
gotten
$1
into the
trillion
cursed
and how many
region.
lives?
We have
It's
gotten
an
into the
impossible
cursed
war to win.
region
Okay,
because
don't talk
Russia
over
is
each other.
unable.
Vinny,
Because
Vinny,
Russia
let
is
Kira
unable to
respond.
control
Guys
their own
can't
territory.
You're not
We were
gonna beat
able to.
Putin.
We were able to
It's
do that,
you're
and we will continue doing
unattainable
it
goal.
because we are fighting for our own freedom, for our ability to define our
You should
own
be
future.
mad. Then
So
you should be
second
mad at
question.
the people that want to push them
Second
into NATO.
question.
Why?
Second, let me answer
guys,
to what you have asked me,
Yeah,
right?
go ahead.
You want
This is
to
rough.
hear the answer.
Yeah,
If
I
we are
wanna
talking
hear it.
about the money, right? So why
Yeah,
is
big
it pressure
time.
being pushed on Ukraine and not on Russian frozen assets? $300 billion right now in Belgium Euroclear. We are happy that Trump confiscates that and uses for whatever he needs. Why it has not been done? Why? If it's all about money. Why? I'm
Okay.
asking you, and we have
that's
no
when-
good answer
yeah.
to that.
Yeah, when your
I
president
actually
comes to our
agree.
freaking country's begging
I
money.
actually agree. Those frozen assets should be used. Let me bring in Batty. Be waiting very patiently, Batty. Look, it's a very complex situation. You know, when Donald Trump said, "I'll get it fixed in 24 hours," I didn't believe him. I don't think he probably believed that either. And I think he's inherited a horrible mess that he wants to try and resolve. Where do you think we are with this, and how achievable do you think it is that Trump gets peace? Actually, it could happen very quickly, it seems to me, if everyone is of the mindset he now thinks they are. Making America healthy again is all the rage at the moment. It might be time for you to take charge of your health, as I'm doing with Jacked Up Fitness. Diet and cardio are not enough. You need to do strength training to build up muscle and bone density while burning fat. The jacked up Power Rack Pro is an all-in-one home gym system that gives you a full body workout in your spare room or garage. If you're new to strength training, they have a whole library of video workouts, so you can just press play and follow along. Jacked Up Fitness has sent a Power Rack Pro to RFK Jr.'s office in Washington, D.C. in support of making America healthy again. And mine is on its way too, and you'll see the gloating home gym selfies to prove it.
You again.
If I can do it, you have no excuse. Visit getjackedup.com and use promo code Piers to start your fitness journey and save 10% on your own. Jacked Up Power Rack. That's getjackedup.com, promo code Piers.
Thank you so much for having me, Piers. Thank you so much to Vinny and to Rob for your service to our country. And I have to say, I'm very humbled and moved by, the voice of Ukrainians who want to be free, who want sovereignty and want autonomy. Unfortunately, you are the much weaker party in a conflict with a country that has nuclear weapons and endless cannon fodder. And we, as the United States, we can sympathize with what you are going through and also say we have our own national interests which are not aligned with yours. We helped a lot, we tried our best, and it is now time to bring the bloodshed and the hemorrhaging of U.S. tax dollars, whether it's 150 billion or 300 billion, to a close. And I'll say another thing. Yes, Putin is an autocrat and a dictator and a murderer, and Russia has legitimate security concerns. Those can both be the case. We've gotten into this situation where we cannot admit that Russia is allowed to have any kind of legitimate concerns. You cannot end a war if you go into it against such a strong opponent with that point of view. I'll just make a few more quick points. I think from President Trump's point of view, he desperately wants this to end. He sees this correctly as a proxy war that the Ukraine cannot win by itself and cannot even fight without our help. And he doesn't want to be in a proxy war. Pierce, you keep pointing out, Donald Trump hates war. He wants peace. This is laudable and admirable. And I think what he sees Zelensky's move as being is 3 times President Zelensky refused this minerals deal, refused to sign it. He keeps asking for the kind of security guarantees that we only give NATO allies. Zelensky is trying to run a circumvention of NATO by creating a mini NATO between the US and Ukraine, and we will not stand for that. We do not want to be in war with Russia because that will be the end of the universe. That will be a nuclear war. And President Trump sees this very clearly. Yes, of course, from a moral point of view, Ukraine are the victims of a heinous, horrific attack on their sovereignty. But how do we end the bloodshed? There's only one way to do it, and it is a negotiated economic.
But we have given up. We have given up our nuclear weapons to you guys. We have given it up in 1994 for your protection.
Sorry, but the American people are done funding this war. That is the reality, and you have to accept it.
But we have given the nuclear weapons for your security guarantees. Are those not worth anything? We were supposed to be a nuclear state, and America, United Kingdom, and Russia promised that if we will give up our nuclear weapons, we will be protected. And so here we are right now at the point when people who offered and promised to do that right now are giving up and saying, so sorry that you have done this, so sorry that you are requiring security guarantees that we cannot give you. But this is the one thing that we didn't hear from Donald Trump. How can he make sure that Putin will keep his part of the bargain? We have seen by
I think that is,
since
I
2019.
do think that is now the crux of this whole debate, which is what are the security guarantees going to be? Zelensky, again, when I interviewed him, made it clear that he doesn't expect to be given full membership of NATO. He almost conceded that point. He concedes the point that the current territorial situation, it is likely we have to freeze things on those lines. He didn't want to give up sovereignty, but he was trying to get it back politically later. But he accepts that we are where we are with the war. I thought he was very honest in my interview with him. But Rob, let me ask you about this. Part of all this, people are concerned that this is like a reshaping of the whole relationship between America, NATO, and Europe. And it was exacerbated by something that J.D. Vance said in an interview with Sean Hannity. Let's take a look.
If you want to actually ensure that Vladimir Putin does not invade Ukraine again, the very best security guarantee is to give Americans economic upside in the future of Ukraine. That is a way better security guarantee than 20,000 troops from some random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years. The security guarantee and also the economic guarantee for Ukraine is to rebuild the country and ensure that America has a long-term interest.
Now, this caused a lot of outcry, not least in the UK, because obviously the two countries so far who've indicated they would send troops are the UK and France. And both of them have been heavily involved in military action with America, certainly within the last 30 years, Iraq, Afghanistan. A lot of outrage in the UK. Graham Stewart, an elected member of Parliament, said, "We have to consider the possibility that President Trump is a Russian asset. If so, Trump's acquisition is the crowning achievement of Putin's FSB career, and Europe is on its own." So, look, I don't think that is the case at all. However, was it ill-advised of J.D. Vance to use that phraseology about a random country which hasn't fought for 30 years, given the two countries so far that have said they'll put troops there? Both have done so?
No, I don't believe so. And I think that the reason that so many people are shocked and outraged and all of this stuff. So I want to tell you, Piers, there's this circle that happens, all right? And we see it over and over again. This is what happens. President Trump actually stands up for America and American interests. If there's President Trump or his Vice President Vance or somebody that is supposed to speak for this country. So they actually stand up to American interests when the rest of the world is used to us being weak and, in Benny's words, basically rolling over. Then there is all of this outrage from the usual suspects. There's outrage from people in these different countries. There's outrage from the people that want things to continue to be the way that they have been for the past 20 to 30 years that have gotten us into the geopolitical position that we are in right now. So there's that outrage cycle. And then what ends up happening is that what Trump says, or what J.D. Vance says, whoever the surrogate says, ends up being true, factual, and accurate. Think about the fact that, everybody was outraged about the Oval Office meeting with Zelensky about this mineral deal. And now Zelensky is all ready to sign this deal, right? So we see this over and over again. Piers, a lot of people are going to be shocked. A lot of people are going to be surprised. A lot of people are going to be outraged. This world needs shock and surprise and outrage from this country because they need to know that we are no longer a country that is just going to roll over for the rest of the planet. We are no longer a country that is just going to send hundreds of billions of dollars of our taxpayer dollars all across the world. It's just not going to happen anymore, Piers. And you're talking to somebody that is a fairly new Republican. Trump 1.0 is what brought me into the fold. So I can understand where a lot of Americans right now are frustrated with the status quo. So you're not talking to somebody that is just used to how things have been going for the past 20, 30, 40 years. I'm somebody that came into the fold back during Trump 1.0 because I knew that there needed to be a change in this country. So I am not shocked by these things. I am not surprised by these things. I am delighted by these things because your other guest made a analogy earlier. He said that Trump is taking a sledgehammer to everything.
What? It's SP4.
What has been happening over the past 20, 30, 40 years in this world needs a sledgehammer taken to it because we cannot continue to survive in this way. Not only can the world not continue to operate in this way, but I know certainly America, the country that I put on a uniform and fought for, the country that I love, the country that I've sacrificed so much for, and by the way, has provided me more opportunity than somebody who came where I come from could ever dream of. We are done with this. And it is time for a new America.
Okay, Mesa, I could see you grimacing as you heard some of that, but the reality is a lot of Americans do share that view now. They do look at the way that NATO is funded. They look at the disproportionate contribution that America makes. They look at the fact that most of Europe has been way behind on even its basic defense spending. And they think, well, if you're not even prepared to defend yourselves properly or stump up enough for your NATO membership, why should we keep bailing you out? I have a lot of sympathy with that view. What do you think?
I think
So
Europe
it's refusing.
does need to spend more on its defense. There is some concerns that the Americans have always had that absolutely are justified. However, one of the points your guest made a second ago was that America is done being taken advantage of. And you're going to see a new face to America. What we're effectively seeing is a new policy of isolationism, a policy in Ukraine of surrender, quite frankly, whereby the United States, alongside its European allies, was supporting an innocent country that's been brutally invaded by another state. And for the minimal amount of investment, not only devastated that strategic enemy's military reserves, and actually they are now much weaker because of this attack on Ukraine, but did it at a very affordable price. There are much greater powers around this world, the rise of China, etc., that will also threaten the United States. America, Reagan said it best when he said, you can have peace tomorrow. All you've got to do is surrender. And the big problem I've got with Trump at the moment and his administration is that he's pursuing this goal of isolationism, of trashing relationships, long-standing relationships with allies such as Britain, France, Canada, Mexico, that will not only damage America's economy, but much more importantly, its soft power, its ability to exert its influence around the world, which is a major part of how they will counter the rise of countries like China. The big part of America, the future of America, is to show the world that liberty, democracy, freedom matter. And that the rise of China and the rise of Russia that want to pollute the world with their autocracy and their evil can be countered by America's history and its solid foundation. So that is something that I think Trump needs to remember, because at the moment we're going down a very bad path.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned China. Hang on, Betty. Hang on. I'm going to come to you. Betty, hang on. I want to read a quote from the Chinese embassy in Washington today, which posted on X: if war is what the US wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. So there, a lot of saber rattling coming from China there in relation to, as Mason just pointed out. In that context, does that make you rethink slightly the way that Trump should be playing this?
First of all, your problem is not with Trump, it's with the American people. 78% of Americans want this war negotiated and peace right now. So that your problem is that Donald Trump is reflecting the will of the people, which I grant you is very strange for an American president. You know, certainly wasn't at the top of Joe Biden's agenda, but it is at the top of Donald Trump's agenda. When 78% of my fellow Americans want something, they should freaking get it. And that is what we're seeing right now, is the victory of democracy. You vote for a person, he does what you ask. Pierce, to your question about Xi Jinping, it's a great question. You know, another autocrat dictator who somehow the Democrats have no problem making common cause with and capitulating to all the time. Guess who would be a really good ally in a fight against China? Russia. That used to be the Democrats' position. That was Barack Obama's position in 2012. And when Mitt Romney told him that Russia is the greatest geopolitical threat to the United States, Obama laughed in his face and said the 1980s called. They want their foreign policy back. We have actual enemies, and Russia is not one of them. That doesn't mean I approve of what they did to Ukraine. I do not. It does mean we have limited resources, and we should be spending them where they matter. Donald Trump is not an isolationist. He has no problem fighting American enemies. He is just being strategic about who those are and who is a potential ally against people who are actually trying to destroy us, like China.
Okay, I want to give the final word on this part of the debate to Kira, because you and Mace will be leaving us, and we're going to continue with some American-related stuff afterwards, not to do with the war. So, Kira, just sum up for me. It's obviously a crucial stage of this war. What do you hope will happen now in the next few weeks?
Piers, I think we have been talking a lot about what would happen if the war ends or if Ukraine wins, and we have not been talking enough about what would happen if we lose. What would it mean to other enemies of the United States? Would it mean that Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran stop producing weapons and supplies and support other authoritarian regimes that will be raising their heads, creating much more threats everywhere in the world? We are talking about morals, we are talking about money, but we haven't heard any real answer to only one question that our nation that wants peace most of the world is, how do you make sure that Putin would not attack us again? And there is no answer. We didn't hear it from Donald Trump, from anyone here on this debate, because nobody knows, because there are many hopes, but there is no actual way of doing that. And right now, the only way that worked for us was fighting Putin, because we have been in this ceasefire deal with him since 2014. And I can tell you one thing, there was not a single day when Russia would honor this deal. And the world would look at that and say, yeah, sorry, it's so upsetting. So how this time will be different? And when we know the answer, then we can talk more about how to achieve that. But right now, we do not see even a strategy of how to make sure that right now, in a year, in 2 years, in 4 years, Russia would not attack us again with the whole strength, and not only us, but other European countries. And that is the key question.
I completely agree with you. I wouldn't trust Putin as far as I could throw him. He made it crystal clear when he attacked Crimea and took that, and when he's attacked now again and taken 20% of mainland Ukraine, he will not stop. And anyone who thinks he will is living in cloud cuckoo land. Well, thank you to Mesa and to you, Kira, for joining us about that debate about Ukraine. We're going to let you two both go. Now I'm going to move on to some other topics. Andrew Tate appeared on the PBD podcast this week talking about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, making it clear he and his brother Tristan aren't
You failed, Ron.
in his state. Here's what Tate had to say in response.
It's quite unusual and quite scary for me to land as an American citizen, expecting a hero's welcome after dealing with a foreign and complicated judicial process, and being told that now the American state is going to be set on me, trying its very best to lock me up here when I've done nothing wrong ever. This is communism in and of itself. I may as well fly back to Romania.
Vinny, it's an interesting story, this. So you had these two brothers. I've interviewed them both, Andrew Tate, numerous times. They were facing extremely serious charges, including sex trafficking in Romania. But right at the moment, we were expecting them to appear in a proper trial. They've been allowed to travel out of the country. They've gone straight to America. They've been called from the UK to have them sent back to the UK, where they're facing other serious allegations there. But what's interesting is the way that Florida has responded. And on a wider point, the way the Republican movement has responded. A lot of Republicans absolutely gung-ho behind the Tates. A lot of Republicans very angry about the fact that any Republicans are standing behind them. You've been in the room with Andrew Tate for this big interview that he did with the podcast. What is your view?
Well, first, Piers, I mean, listen, love him or hate Andrew Tate, you have to at least admit and respect the fact that this guy moves.
Love or hate the Tate.
From when he started, Piers, talking about masculine, men trying to be masculine, you know, talking to girls, being a man, trying to be the best that you could be. The moment, Piers, everybody was fine with it. The moment he started talking about the system, the same system that's been trying to destroy Donald Trump, the same system that shot Donald Trump in his freaking head and tried to kill him. This is just him in a different country and in a different way. Okay, Piers, I've hung out with this guy multiple times. He's not what the media says that he is. Has he messed up in the past? 1,000%. And if there's a crime, Piers, and you get convicted, go to jail. Okay, period. Anybody that's guilty, go to jail. For him to come here, he has a passport. He was born in the United States. For Ron DeSantis to last minute be like, hey, you know what? Don't come here. You're not welcome. What kind of authoritative attitude is that, Piers? And then I tried to think, why, Piers? Why would Ron DeSantis all of a sudden say, don't come here? The guy has a passport. He's from here. I think it has deeper implications. I think it's because his wife, Casey, is going to be running for governor, and they don't want anybody that's a male that's implicated in anything. But where's the crime, Piers? Like, DeSantis is about to act like, because I know there's like they're looking for them right now, or they're trying to put a crime on them. If that's not the same weaponization of the justice system that Biden was doing to Trump, then what is it? How are we different than these people? What did they do, Piers? It's different if you actually committed a crime, but looking for a crime to get somebody in jail is absolutely ridiculous, Piers. That's communism 101. Okay. All right, Batia, your response to that.
Your response to that. Well, first of all, I think it's a very, very important point. The way the Republican movement has responded. A lot of Republicans very angry about the fact that any Republicans are standing behind them. You have to
I just can't believe a single person on the right would defend this degenerate, a person who has bragged about beating on women, bragged about trafficking them. He makes the left's case for it. You know, the left is out there demonizing men, demonizing masculinity, and then this guy shows up and says, I'm a real man, I beat on women. And the right is like, yeah, right on. This is a real man.
Does he actually beat women? I don't know. I don't know everything about Tate.
And I'm so proud of the American right because I've never seen a leftist have a sister soldier moment in the last 20 years and stand up to the extremists on their side. But I've seen so many people on the right, conservatives, saying this does not represent us. A man is a man who protects women. A man is a man who raises his children. A man is a man who makes people safe, like you both did when you served this country. You serve in the military. That's what makes a man. That's what real masculinity is. Protecting and serving, not this disgusting degenerate who has bragged about beating up women. So yeah, I think the justice system should work fine. If there's a crime, they should prosecute. If there's not a crime, they shouldn't. We can all just say this person is disgusting and keep him away from my daughters and keep him away from my women. But I'm so proud that there were so many people on the right who stood up to someone who's ostensibly on their side and said this is not what represents us.
But
okay,
can I just say one thing, though? Can I just say one thing really fast, Piers?
Quickly,
I understand the frustration, but where's the proof? He could have said anything. When Trump said grab them by the you-know-what, he didn't do it. This guy is just, like, you guys have to understand, Andrew Tate is a personality. I've heard the videos where he's jokingly around and people take it serious. Unless there's a victim, unless there's a girl that's stepped forward, which the ones that they brought up were told to go against him, okay? Because he's going up against the Matrix, okay? These girls have all come out.
Hang on, Vinny, hang on. To be clear, that's what he's told you, right? There is a lot of evidence there. Well, there's a lot of evidence that he was going to be held accountable over, which he now is highly likely to avoid being held accountable over. I've always said I don't know the truth about Andrew Tate. I do think he has a huge influence on young men. But I don't know the evidence, but I do know there are a lot of claims from a lot of women building up both in Romania and in the UK. Rob, over to you.
So I want to hop in, and I'm going to zoom out from the moral arguments about this entire situation right now. What's very interesting to me, and probably why Ron DeSantis has had such a hard time during the Trump 2.0 era, is how out of line with the vast majority of the Republican base they seem to be by sort of making this very firm public stance against Andrew Tate. And what I think that this really has something to do with, obviously, like Vinny said before, the rumor is that Casey DeSantis may run for governor of Florida. I've had dinner with Governor DeSantis and Casey before. Casey is fantastic. She really is. But look at the fact that Byron Donalds, who is big in Trump world, huge in Trump world, is also likely to be running for Florida governor. I believe that he announced, okay?
Oh, I'm
so
still getting
that is
proficiency?
what really this is about. And I think that this is
I'm not
sort of
using a
politics at play here. And
sense.
this is Ron DeSantis basically saying that we are going to be, Team DeSantis, now it's going to be Casey, that we are going to be the moderate Republicans, that we're going to be the quote-unquote good Republicans, right? And it's kind of positioning themselves against Trump 2.0 and positioning themselves against whatever Byron Donalds is going to bring to the table as somebody that's running for Florida governor.
Byron Donalds said the same thing. He came out against Andrew Tate today. So that whole idea that this is sort of dividing the Republicans in Florida is not correct. And I just totally disagree with you. Donald Trump is not an extremist.
You can disagree, and that's fine.
He is in
that's
the
fine.
center.
But Batia, let me say something here. Byron Donalds is a politician, a great politician, but a politician. And so he knows that that's not something that he wanted to get in the middle of. But what I do know is that Byron Donalds is a great politician, and he knows that the vast majority of the MAGA base is going to fall in line with where Vinny is on this spot, And I'm trying to be as objective as possible here because, like I said, I don't like getting into moral arguments about conservative political figures or conservative commentators because I've been attacked by being gay, for being gay from people that are far to the right of me. So, I do not get into the moral majority stuff here.
Okay, I want to play, Vinny, I want to change topic and play a clip. This is from Ben Shapiro, who's come out and called for Derek Chauvin, who's serving life imprisonment for murdering George Floyd, of course, calling for him to get a part, something that Elon Musk says is an interesting thing to suggest. Let's take a look at what Ben Shapiro said.
If we are issuing pardons, there is one person that President Trump should pardon from federal charges forthwith. It would be incredibly controversial, but I think that it's absolutely necessary. That person is Derek Chauvin. President Trump should, in fact, pardon Derek Chauvin. He should. Pardon him his federal charges.
Vinny, what do you think of this?
Piers, by the way, came out of nowhere, and I think that's probably one of the dumbest ideas that I've heard in a long time, especially from Ben, who I think is insanely smart. Like, what? Okay, even if, Piers, even if, and I've seen the coroner's report, and George Floyd died because he had enough drugs in him to kill all of us. Everybody in your studio, Piers, and everybody in my studio, and Robin and hers alike. But that's not the case. That type of attitude, if you look at what we went through BLM, okay? How many $2 billion of damage, almost 30 people killed. The whole country was on fire, and it helped Trump lose the election. For Ben to say something like that, I just want to ask, like, Ben, do you want civil war? Do you want Trump to lose? I don't. It's such a weird position for him to take, because only someone that doesn't like Trump, like, think about it, Piers, if
that was a lot of worms.
If they pardon him
Give me like
today,
100 worms.
what
What
does
was
the
that?
country look like in the next 3 days, month, whatever?
Looks
If you don't
like I
think George
got
Soros
all
and
of them.
that freaking
entire
Antifa
species.
BLM arm is gonna come out and burn this country even worse, you're insane. It's totally out of character. I don't understand why would he say that? Why would he want? I think that would seriously ruin Trump's presidency. So it's a weird angle from Ben that I don't fully understand. I don't know why.
Okay, Batty, what do you think of it?
Let me say this.
Okay, well, Rob, let's go to Rob first. Yeah, Rob, you go first.
Yeah, this is what I say, and I said this on X. The fact that this is a conversation that literally did not come up organically, that nobody was talking about, it seems to have come from the top down. Ben Shapiro is somebody with an enormous amount of influence in the conservative movement, and so I'm really questioning the motivation of having this conversation right now. Like I said, it seems something that is a top-down conversation and not a bottom-up conversation, which makes my spidey senses start tingling. Having this public conversation right now helps absolutely no one. And furthermore, let me make a point here. So Ben Shapiro is going to position himself as somebody who's done all the research, that knows this, et cetera, et cetera. The vast majority of the American people have not done enough research about that case to really have any kind of informed opinion on it. That's the truth, right? So now it provides Ben Shapiro the leeway to say, oh, trust me, I know what is right. I have studied this. I do not like it. My spidey sense is tingling. This doesn't help the Republican Party. This doesn't help Trump. I just do not know who benefits from having this conversation less than 2 months into a presidency that is already loathed by every Democrat and every liberal in this country.
Well, Batty, I mean, Elon Musk said it's something to think about. He responded to Ben Shapiro's post. Michael Knowles on this show has said he agrees with Ben Shapiro. What's your view?
I agree with the two heroes on this show. And Piers, I just love this show because you always manage to pick topics that pit us together, pit us apart, pit us together. Like, it's such a great show and everyone has such a good time on it. I'm with these guys. I think that this is such
Not
a
everybody.
huge mistake, and I think it's because of what we were actually disagreeing about
There's
before.
a few that have been
The
pretty funny.
average MAGA voter is a normie. They're just a normal, average, good-hearted American. Donald Trump's agenda right now, every item has between 60 and 80% support among the American people. This is an unbelievably unifying
20%
moment.
is
The State of the
very
Union, the
loud
joint
about
address
it.
he gave last night, 76% approval. I mean, people love what he's doing, and that
it's not
includes
possible.
millions and millions of Democrats. Donald Trump is basically a New Deal
Billions
Democrat.
and
He has taken over
billions.
the government and is using it to bring back the American dream. It's an amazing unifying moment, and only the scolds in the Democratic Party and their, slaves in the media can't see it. And to me, I totally agree with
Oh,
Vinny and Rob.
crap.
Why introduce something that is
Not
bound
what I was
to
expecting.
be divisive, that was decided by a jury of our peers? It's not like the January 6th where the whole thing was politicized. It was there was a court case. I watched every minute of it. This is a moment for unity on the right, and so I totally agree with them.
Well, I think we may head to a second
Yikes.
moment of unprecedented unity from an entire panel, because we're now going to finish by talking about Meghan Markle, my old friend, and her new Netflix series, With Love, Meghan. I've seen some brutal reviews in my time, Batia, but my God, The Independent called it queasy and exhausting. The Guardian said it was a gormless lifestyle filler. The Telegraph said it was exercising narcissism, saying Meghan invites people to her
7,200 every like
penthouse
2 to 3
where they
seconds.
tell her how amazing she is. This happens for 8 episodes. And then there's this clip where she harangues one of her so-called friends for getting her name wrong.
It is a behemoth. These are like one of the hardest, if not the hardest.
Jack in the Box.
Monsters
It's
to
funny
fight
too that
in
you
the
keep
game.
saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. You have kids, and you
Yeesh.
go, no, I share my name
Abort.
with my children. Yes. And that feels so. I didn't know how meaningful it would be to me, but it just means so much to go. This is our family name.
Now, Batia, I know you feel strongly about this. I just have to say, I come from Sussex in England. It's a county on the south coast. It has several million people live in it. I can tell you with some certainty, if you went round and chose 100,000 people from villages and towns in Sussex, have you ever seen Meghan Markle here in the county? You would not find a single person that has ever seen her there. It is reputed she has spent under 6 hours in the county in her entire lifetime. I was educated there. I have a home there. I grew up there. I spent more time there this week than she has in her lifetime. And also, she's not a Sussex. She's a Windsor. You marry into the Windsor family. They got given this title of Duke and Duchess of Sussex by Her Majesty the Queen, the late great Queen. And my view is that because they've now renounced the royal family and attacked them and renounced the monarchy and stuff, they should have the title stripped. And that's for King Charles to decide. What is interesting to me is that this is the latest attempt for Meghan and Harry to try and move on
almost did it.
from the
Still got
only
2 more
shtick
chests
they
yet.
had in town, which is attacking their families. And this might be the worst attempt yet, because the reviews, even Variety, the sort of Hollywood Bible, absolutely hammered this. I tried watching it, and after, honestly, about 3-4 minutes, I was done. It was just unwatchable. Have you enjoyed any of it, and what is your view? Patty.
Well, I did. I watched the first episode so that I could speak, from a position of at least some knowledge. And I just sat there thinking, why does this exist? The shows it's based on are of women working, right? Women making a living, either as a lifestyle brand or as cooking shows or what have you. Meghan Markle is not working. She's pretending to work purely to get attention, to feed this bottomless need of attention. And I'll tell you the second thing I was thinking, Piers. I was thinking, Piers Morgan must be feeling so vindicated right now because you had her number from day one. You had her number. And so I quite enjoyed that experience of thinking that while watching it.
Well, Vinny, I mean, it just struck me watching it. I watched a bit more than 3 minutes in the end. I watched the first episode just to try and get my head around this. It's just the ultimate kind of vanity.
A little bit stronger than I
project, where
was
it's all about
before.
people telling Meghan how great she is, her telling everyone how great she is.
This guy's still
It's not
hit
even
pretty
her
hard.
house. She's doing things like making coffee, making a basic cake. There's nothing to actually learn here. It's just a vanity project. And it's interesting to me that in Britain,
one
they're
was they doing?
incredibly unpopular, her and Harry now. I mean, the most unpopular royals, which when you think we have Prince Andrew, is
get
pretty
the V's, I
extraordinary
guess.
to go under that bar. But in terms of Americans, I actually think most Americans now just think, I'm not interested. They're not even energized enough to be angry. They're just like, who cares about these idiots?
Oh, Piers, 1,000%. Because I'm going to be completely honest with you, because I didn't know this topic was even going to come up on the show. I don't follow it. I don't listen to it. Just, how about this, Piers? Just that clip. This is the first time I'm seeing any piece of anything from, because, Piers, I'm not even joking. I feel so sorry for Harry. I'm going to pray tonight for that guy. Piers, oh my God. And think about this. Well, Piers, she must have the greatest, I don't know what she's doing to this guy. I don't know how good she is at whatever she does to make to denounce your freaking royalty. Are you freaking kidding me? I can't even believe that I'm saying this. Harry, he's a beta male. He should call freaking Andrew Tate and be like, dude, what the, give me some advice. Help me. That guy needs freaking help. What the hell are we even talking about, Piers? Oh my God, my brain hurt.
You know, Donald Trump called, when I interviewed him a couple of years ago about this, he said that Harry was the most pussy-whipped man in the world. I don't think he was far wrong. Rob, have you watched any of this?
I have not. You know, Piers, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. I am completely indifferent to Meghan Markle. I am just not interested. There is nothing that is captivating about her. The story is kind of interesting, but this whole thing, I mean, God, man, watch who you marry. Who you marry is really, really one of the most important choices that you'll make in your entire life, and I don't think Harry made a good one.
And also, I think it's important to note that America has sent 2 women now into our royal family. The first one, Wallis Simpson, caused an abdication of the throne, and they left the country, and she took away our king. And the second one has now pulled a similar stunt with Prince Harry. So our message from the UK to America is we love you, we have a special relationship with you, we are allies, we are friends, but please don't
Stop
send any more of your women to our royal family.
Yeah.
Can we all agree?
Send them women.
No more support.
We have agreement again. Unprecedented. Great panel. Thank you all very much. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate, and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.
Cuban.
Good morning and welcome back to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. It is Thursday, and I don't know, I think I got a full night's sleep for the first time in weeks, so I'm in a good mood right now.
Well, I love to hear that you're in a good mood,
But
Rob.
shall it continue? That's the question.
Well, I'm here, so clearly
So you
it will
think it will.
continue.
Indeed.
What's on your radar, Robert?
Is this a new
Happy to
co-host?
tell you. Let's get right to it. Dr.
It's a revolving door of co-hosts on this show, I swear to God. Robbie is the only survivor.
To lead the National Institutes of Health. An esteemed professor of public health at Stanford University, Bhattacharya became known for making thoughtful criticisms of the government's handling of COVID-19. He was interviewed on Rising. For speaking up against compulsory lockdowns, masking, and vaccination, Bhattacharya was muzzled by social media companies. Now, he argues that this was done at the behest of the Biden administration. During his remarks on Wednesday, Bhattacharya emphasized that public health had gone astray, and under his tenure, NIH, the National Institutes of Health, would no longer promote censorship and groupthink. Let's watch.
If confirmed, I will establish a culture of respect for free speech in science and scientific dissent at the NIH. Over the last few years, top NIH officials oversaw a culture of cover-up, obfuscation, and a lack of tolerance for ideas that differed from theirs. Dissent is the very essence of science.
Wow, okay. All
I will
right.
foster a culture where NIH leadership will actively encourage different perspectives and create an environment where scientists, including early career scientists and scientists that disagree with me, can express disagreement.
Very important remarks. Now, it's important to reflect on the vast censorship that occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic due to under the auspices of public health guidelines. Let me take you back to
What are you
the
talking
summer
about?
of
The whole lab
2021,
leak?
at which point the COVID-19 pandemic had entered a new phase.
Like my
Vaccines
account
were
got flagged
widely
for?
available for those who wanted them, and coronavirus cases had declined as the initial wave was beaten back. Now, even so, mass vaccination did not end the pandemic. The vaccines offered considerable protection against severe disease and death, particularly for the elderly and at-risk population, but they did not prevent infection. The frustration from the public health establishment was palpable, and top policymakers within the Biden administration blamed vaccine-hesitant individuals for, in their minds, exacerbating the pandemic. In July, President Biden said, quote, "The only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated." Among government health advisors, a consensus quickly formed that the main culprit was medical misinformation on social media, which I guess Jay Bhattacharya was one of the people guilty of spreading. Biden asserted that Facebook had blood on its hands and implied that regulation would follow if moderation on social media did not improve. As a consequence, social media company Facebook effectively put the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in charge of determining what kind of speech would be permitted on the platform. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy published a report on, quote, confronting health misinformation that encouraged social media platforms to prioritize early detection of misinformation super spreaders, limit their reach wherever possible. In other words, censorship. The Center for Countering Digital Hate, an activist nonprofit organization, coined the term the Disinformation Dozen to refer to the 12 social media accounts most responsible for the spread of anti-vax narratives and urged social media companies to take action. The anti-misinformation efforts were not just talk. They had a legislative component as well. This is what I really wanted to get to today. Senator Amy Klobuchar was particularly animated on this issue. July 22nd, 2021, she introduced the Health Misinformation Act, which would have granted broad new powers to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. These powers would have included the ability of the Secretary to reduce online platforms' protection from liability under Section 230, which is the federal law that immunizes websites from liability for user speech. In effect, summarizing, Klobuchar's bill would have established that the federal government could use a public health emergency as a pretext to erode vital free speech protections at the whims of Health and Human Services. Now, it's clear whose speech Klobuchar was interested in censoring, people like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. Also, her press release accompanying her bill explicitly mentioned that so-called disinformation dozen. Klobuchar and her fellow Democrats wanted to empower the HHS secretary to censor COVID speech with which they disagreed. Needless to say, the Health Misinformation Act actually never did become law. That might be a relief to Klobuchar at present because the secretary of HHS is now Robert F. Kennedy Jr., one of the very social media users accused by her and by Democrats of being a misinformation super spreader. If her bill had been enacted, it would have eventually empowered Kennedy, someone she thinks of and the mainstream media thinks of as encouraging vaccine hesitancy by promoting the idea that vaccines are dangerous, that person to make determinations about what counts as misinformation online. Now, Kennedy has regularly condemned government-directed censorship of health topics online, so maybe he would have never used this ability. He has a principled objection to it. But look, it's not completely impossible to imagine some alternate reality where, say, the Health Misinformation Act is law and RFK's HHS is pushing social media companies to add warning labels about potential adverse effects to social media posts about vaccination, if that is indeed his view of vaccines. Now, this is precisely why the First Amendment vastly constrains the government's ability to make determinations about what kinds of speech are valid. Politicians would be tempted to propose new restrictions on speech that target their opponents, and even well-intentioned efforts to promote the public well-being are bound to be abused by whomever is swept into power next. Then there's the small matter of the would-be censors subsequently being proven wrong time and time again, so-called experts blithely asserting that anyone casting aspersions on social distancing, mask mandates, lockdowns, school closures were succumbing to misinformation.
Dive and dip.
Yet the criticisms of these policies have fared better than the policies themselves. That's without even mentioning the widespread suppression
There was no
and
science
demonization
behind it.
of the lab leak theory of COVID's origins, which was initially branded racist conspiracy theory. You might remember that. It was vigorously censored on Facebook as a result. 4 years later, both the Energy Department and the FBI have concluded that lab leak is the more plausible explanation. Now, there's little reason to think that giving the federal government even more power to police coronavirus misinformation on social media via Klobuchar's proposed law would have benefited the public. On the contrary, it would have resulted in the censorship of worthwhile dissenting viewpoints, viewpoints that are protected by the First Amendment, regardless of the status of Section 230. But it's doubly ironic that passing such a law would have massively backfired. The very people, the Democrats, the mainstream media, and Biden's health advisors wanted to silence are now in charge of the health department. I reached out to Klobuchar's office to see if she still supported this bill, and she did not respond to a request for comment by me. So I think it's a good cautionary tale, Linda. If you're going to propose some new government power, you must imagine that power being wielded by your political rivals, because we change who's in charge every 4 years.
You're right, Robbie.
They
and
never
it's a great
do.
cautionary tale.
It happens all the time, and it still backfires in their face. And
presidential
I don't know.
authorities that we've been talking
They only
about
think
for
about
weeks
the
and
here
weeks
and
on
now,
end here, because
not
it, of course, sets
the
a
next couple
precedent
years
for what
after.
may happen when the tables may turn in the future and a Democratic president might be in office. This is why, of course, we have a government that is supposed to be, and you're going to argue with me about this, inefficient by design. We're supposed to be methodical. We're supposed to make changes carefully for exactly the reasons that you're highlighting. I will say, however, that if we are going to go back in the time machine to when COVID was going on and what we knew when we knew it, we do need to recall that we also had a president, the now again President Donald Trump, who at least 65 different times during White House briefings claimed that instead of vaccination, instead of medication, what we should be looking towards is hydroxychloroquine, things that you might use to clean your goldfish bowl, and some other now very seriously debunked theories about what one should be doing instead. The misinformation commander-in-chief.
It's funny you say debunked when that
I mean,
has
I
been
agree with
debunked.
you. I was agreeing with you, and then like the agreement meter was decreasing as you kept talking. But
Yeah.
obviously, I agree that Republicans in charge should wield power very carefully, because opening the door.
You started sounding like an
government
idiot
via
toward the
executive
end,
order
is what
can
he
be
was
done.
saying.
Can be undone via executive order as well. So if they're going to make all these changes that I support to the federal government, unless they're going to actually go through the process of having Congress legislate, all these things can be undone quite easily. We're going to talk about a little bit later on the show about doing just that, about finally congressional Republicans feeling inclined to act, to actually do something to support the Trump agenda. So we'll leave it there. Plenty more to discuss and debate today. Now, one thing that the Dems can agree on is that they have no idea how to oppose Trump effectively. We will discuss. Stay tuned.
Where's that chest? It's not like my phone. It doesn't autoplay. What's this? God, that's terrifying. We're not ready for war with China.
Come see us do stand-up in Baltimore, Hartford, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, and San Jose, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for the tickets. This happened last night.
Taibbi, all right.
It's strange how the
good journalist
Democrats, liberals, who are now illiberals, have gone from being staunch defenders of free speech to being staunch defenders of censorship and authoritarian fascists in that way. And then now they've also become pro-war. And here's Donald Trump calling it out last night with Elizabeth Warren. Let's watch.
With no end in sight, the United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense, with no security, with no anything.
So now those are Democrats applauding that they're just endlessly supporting a proxy war that has been instigated by NATO, the West, and Americans' economic hitmen. Look, watch, it goes on.
Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes.
Boy, Pocahontas says yes sounds like if Disney Animation did porn. Anyway, she puts the poke back in Pocahontas. Look, but let's watch her clap. And there she goes. And there she's just clapping along because my theory is her mighty native bloodline. She knows intuitively that if the tribal leader says something, you can't beat him. You should join them. That's what I think is happening there. So that's Elizabeth Warren clapping like a seal, for the war machine. And she's supposed to be, some big liberal champion. And there's Trump calling her out for it. And it's so easy for Donald Trump to get to the left of these people because they're all authoritarian tools of war. And here's Bernie Sanders just yesterday. He tweeted this out. For 250 years, the United States has supported democracy, which is laughable. Especially what we know now about USAID and the NED. I mean, we've all known that, but now regular people are getting to know that stuff. He says now in the middle of a horrific war that Putin started, again, he's just, he's being ahistorical. Trump is turning his back on Ukraine and democracy.
Democracy.
Ukraine is not a democracy. It's now a dictatorship. He's outlawed the opposing political parties. He's outlawed the opposing any skeptical or critical media. He's killed and jailed journalists like Gonzalo Lera. American journalists. That's right. And it was so egregious that he got community noted on Twitter. It said, even under Obama in 2015, the United States was providing weapons and or military training to 73% of the world's dictatorships. As classified by Freedom House, the U.S. is the #1 supporter of dictatorships in the world. And so there is that. So just to let you know, I just want the listeners. Here's the leading scholar, international scholar, Mersheimer, and he's going to tell you what Trump is doing in Ukraine is the right thing.
I mean, he has no real option here other than to go along with what President Trump wants. And as you and I have said on countless occasions, actually what Trump wants is what's best for Ukraine. Zelensky doesn't realize that, and most Ukrainians don't realize that.
Oh, here we go again.
What Trump wants to do is shut down the war as soon as possible. And that is in Ukraine's interest. It's not in Ukraine's interest to continue this war. And although Zelensky thinks that's the case, he's just dead wrong. So in a very important way, I think that what Trump wants to do is good for Ukraine.
So,
probably spirit.
I mean, even
attack.
Here, Primo Radical shows you that the people in Ukraine want their elections. Then Zelensky won't give them an election, and he says, "Since when does criminalizing opposition and canceling elections equals democracy?"
Sorry.
So how did this? Again, my question is the same as before. It's a little different. How did liberals go from being staunch anti-war, anti-CIA, anti-war machine to being people who are sitting there applauding endless war, which we all know now is a proxy war that was instigated by NATO in the West?
I mean, it's amazing. You just think about the difference between now and the Bush years, when the average American liberal actually agreed with the Colin Powell position that you can't go in to a war without a clear objective. You break it, you own it. There has to be a goal. Soldiers need a goal, right? And we can't just go to war just to do it. And Ukraine it's a slightly different situation because it was a country that was invaded, right? But this is a situation that can't be won militarily. Barack Obama made this exact same decision in not going to Crimea for the very sensible reason that it was always going to have be more important to Putin than that area is going to be to us. And so they're not going to lose that war. Like Russia is not going to be defeated in this conflict.
We knew that from
Ukraine
the second
can't
week.
defend itself at all by itself.
If not the first week.
So what we're being asked to do is to
Just like
support
COVID.
in
We figured it out
perpetuity
real
an
quick.
incredibly bloody, dangerous war that not only involves a huge loss of life in Ukraine, but puts us in real jeopardy of getting into a global conflict with a nuclear power. And what's so funny is that when you mention that now, and that's called a Russian talking point. If you bring up the nuclear clock, which has been part of American society since the 50s or 60s, that's now called a Russian talking point. Worrying about nuclear war is a Russian talking point. It's a Putin talking point. But it's true. Like we had NATO countries firing missiles into Russian territory, and only because they decided not to expand the situation are we not in some kind of a shooting war with the nuclear power. It's astonishing to me that people I marched with, I remember in 2002 against the Iraq War, are so for this. They're rabidly for this, it's a mystery to me. I mean, is it to you? I mean,
it just shows you how weak-minded people who I used to think weren't are. People who I thought would be able to see through the war machine,
the
weird. Censorship machine, and Trump broke their brain. And that's just, there's no two ways around it. Trump broke their brain, and so now anything that they can, if Trump said he liked vanilla ice cream, they would say vanilla ice cream is Putin ice cream, and that's it. Look what happened with COVID. I mean, they became.
It's I don't want to be at war anymore.
They went from being my body, my choice.
A Putin puppet. How about that, comrade?
People used to protest GMOs in their food. We're now wanting to take your kids away if you didn't want to inject them with an experimental medical treatment with no long-term studies. They wanted you to lose your job. They wanted you to lose the right of travel if you wouldn't take this big pharma product. So they're no longer they're not for bodily autonomy anymore. They're pro-abortion. You've seen that shift. I've seen it. They say which is like being pro-amputation. Like I'm pro-choice. Being pro-abortion is a dark thing. There's no way around that. And so that's, to me, it's just Trump derangement syndrome. But the fact that Bernie Sanders, it's like, is someone else writing your tweets? I mean, what? So he was never what we thought he was. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, I didn't know much about, but at Bernie Sanders, he used to start every speech with "Sounds like you're ready for a revolution," and he just turns into, Lindsey Graham. I mean, it's just like at the snap of a finger, and he doesn't have any shame, and it turns out he has no dignity, and at all. I mean, at all. If you're willing to do that. There's no
Bernie
bigger. I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but that's scum of the earth activity when you're cheering on the slaughter of innocent Ukrainians for an economic hitman's war in Ukraine. That's so. There are no leaders in the Democratic Party. That's what I. There is no point to the Democratic Party, but we're not ruled by parties. We're ruled by oligarchs, and they control both parties. And they can't control Trump as much, and that's why they tried to kill him twice. That's why they Russiagated him, impeached him twice, and did January 6th, and then did 92 felony indictments, right, while George Bush walks the earth a free man. So that, to me, that's it's again, I turn to you because you're a much smarter, wiser, more educated man by myself. I'm a nightclub comedian. And I just is there a way out of this? Like how the Democrat, there's just no snapping these people out of it.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, I would gladly trade places with you and be a nightclub comedian. But that sounds like a much better job to me. But no, I mean, you bring up Bernie. Bernie is probably the politician that I know best personally of any in the world. In 2006 he invited me to spend the better part of a month following him around in Congress. He never once asked to be off the record, I've had dinner with him socially. He's gone out with my family. I had an image of him that was, I guess, completely different from the reality, or I'm just confused about this recent turn. There's only one explanation that I can really come up with, because my impression of Bernie always was that he he was a person of integrity. I thought he was doing these things not for money, not for fame, not for the usual politician reasons. But I did have a conversation with him once where he said some interesting things about kind of his affection for the Democratic Party, and he talked sort of very passionately about what it meant to him when he was a kid, growing up in poor in Brooklyn, and how nobody he knew was a Republican. Everybody he knew was a Democrat, and Joe Biden had been a friend of his when he got to the Senate. From the House, Biden had been a mentor to him, told him how the place worked, and I think there was a part of him deep inside that believes kind of in the classic lefty way in party politics, right? In other words, party before self. In a way that Americans don't really associate with. That's the only rational explanation I can come up with for a lot of this stuff, because on so many other issues, Bernie, and he will say this openly, that he and Trump were really mining the same territory politically in both 2016 and 2020. But now he's just gone over into this red baiting, sort of John Brennan style version of what the Democratic Party is, and there's no other way I can account for it. Can you? I mean, I don't know.
No, it just reveals the worst. He would have been much better if he got out of politics after 2020, because his legacy is just garbage now. It turned into the thing he's used to be fighting against, and he is the monster. There's really no other way to put it. And he was
so close too. That's the funny thing about it. He had them by the short and curlies. He really did.
Yeah, and he could have demanded things. He could have extracted concessions. If he had a little bit of Matt Getz in him, he could have did something. But he doesn't. He doesn't have that in him. And I've had other people. I've seen Michael Parente talk about Bernie Sanders and how after. The bombing of Kosovo, he stopped talking to Michael Parenti and things like so. Bernie's always been kind of a cuck to the war machine in a way, and it's that is just it's just disgusting. There's nothing. There's no. That's just that's John Brennan stuff. That's not stuff you would expect from somebody who calls himself a progressive or represents the working man or anything. It's all the anti that. Right. Every bomb that's produced, every gun is taking as Eisenhower said, it's taking a meal out of the poor kid's mouth, and it's just, and he doesn't care about any of it. I don't know what he's doing. He's trying to not be as he told Chris Hedges, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. And now Ralph Nader's saying the same stupid shit that Bernie's saying. It's just, it's amazing. Ralph Nader still thinks that there's communism in Russia. Did you see his latest tweet? It was.
Oh, I didn't see that. What did he say?
Yeah, he's saying.
It drives me crazy when people say that. What did he say?
Yeah, he was referring to Russia as a communist, and it was just like, dude, what? I don't, but and. I almost tweeted about it. I almost said whoever's running his Twitter account should be fired, but I just let it go. And it's.
I mean, that's a 40-year-old error. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been a while, or 30 years, or whatever.
30 years.
While.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since they tore down the wall, and since the vulture capitalists took over in Russia. Hey, the IRS is the largest tax collection agency in the world. And with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement is ramped up, and if you owe back taxes or unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. Ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. Getting ahead of this is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. That's a fact. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorney and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free to talk to them. Stop the threatening letters, stop looking over your shoulder, and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Jimmy. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first.
Good night.
Come see us do stand-up in Baltimore, Hartford, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, and San Jose, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for the tickets.
All right, guys. Probably going to call it for right now. Wait, what is this?
What? Seriously? This is
What just
bad.
happened?
Run for it! Yuffie, I really hope...
What was that about? All right. Oh, let's check this out real quick. 35%. That's it. 35%. That's ridiculous. Yeah, good lord. There's too many VR missions. Like, I feel like I should be coming up 100%, and I'm only at 35. Like, give us more of the game, less of the whatever this is. I guess that's my only critique so far, but I do remember a little bit of the PSP on the original. It was a lot of VR missions, from what I can kind of vaguely remember. But yeah, good God, 35. I feel like I've been doing several days of this. I'm getting burnt out. Those later ones got to be tough, and I might just have to make a couple saves and then try to go past that point of no return and just see if I can still do them. It would be weird if you couldn't keep going, because there's still going to be saves after the point of no return. It's probably just talking about side quests, like other side quests. But anyway, Coop, you guys have a good night. I'm going to get out of here.